Has everyone have like Power BI and so you should have two Excel files, one called raw and final. Does everyone have that? Good to go. All right. So we're going to start using the raw data file. So the main goal that what we're trying to accomplish here is basically, so this is the, assume this is the data set that the client has like sent to you. Obviously there's like mistakes and like, you know, maybe the data's not consistent. Our goal is to try to like spot what we need to clean, like do like data checks, basic data checks, basic data cleaning using Excel. And then once those things are done, we can move on to, you know, problem analysis. So just from like the very beginning, so like we have, yeah, like a lot of like rows. So if you like scroll down, there's like, you know, 264,000 rows and then a couple of columns. Immediately, I think what you can see is like, I think the columns are not spaced properly. So like some of the things you can't see very well. So like one of the things I like doing is just like just size the columns. And what you can do is you can Control A. So that will select the whole, yeah. So that will select the whole table. And then what you can do is you go to alternate H O and then I. So auto fit column width. That will automatically fit the column of the width of the column according to what values they're in. So now, as a result of that, we can see all the values more properly. So what we're going to do now is, because we'll be doing the dashboard later on, you see the field names are now not so like clean. So what we can do is just simply just rewrite them, just rename them. So for example, the first one we can rename them as loyalty card number, and just do the rest for the other ones. So loyalty card number, date, store number, transaction ID, product number, product name. You guys can go along with this. Product quantity, total sales, life stage, and premium customer. I'll stop there. Does anyone have any questions so far? All good? Pretty straightforward stuff so far. All right, I'm just gonna quickly just resize the columns again. So just to recap, Control A to select the whole table. Alternate H O I. That's gonna resize everything. All right, happy to move on? All right, I'm just gonna move on. Is everyone doing okay or like need help? All good? Oh, that's okay. But everyone else using Windows? All good? All right, cool. So now what we're gonna do is just go column by column and try to see if the values in that column actually make sense. If not, why do it not make sense? And then what we can do about it, all right? So the first column, loyalty card number. So this is pretty straightforward, I think. So this is basically an ID that, you know, the company has assigned to the customer. So like a customer will have, a unique customer will have their own loyalty card number. When we move on to date, does anyone know what's going on with the date? Why does the date show up as like 43,390, etc., etc.? The date column, the second column. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Excel has a thing. Don't ask me why they did it. So they've actually set the 1st of January 1900 as 1. So what I can do to prove you how it works is if I just make this date, I +1 and I drag this down. So see how this is 1st of January, this is 5th of January. And if I turn this into, so it's currently a date format. So you can see from the very, at the top bar. So if I change this back to the general, you can see that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What happens there is Excel is actually assigned the 1st of Jan 1900 as the 1st, and then 2nd Jan as 2, and so on and so forth. So what we need to do is actually convert this one into a date format. It's currently sitting as a general. So every time you hover over a cell, you can actually see what sort of data type it is. So this one, the column B is currently sitting as a general. So what we need to do is just highlight everything. So Control Shift arrow down. That should highlight the whole column. And then change the general into short date. Everyone following? Cool. What we're going to do now is just move on. So we have SOR number that is pretty straightforward, transaction ID, product number, product name. We can actually see like the product name has like weird spaces going on in the name. So what we can do is just create a new column next to it. So right click on column G and hit insert. That's going to create a new column. So what we're going to do now is use a function to trim all the spaces out so that the words actually have like nice spacing, not have the weird white spaces that's going on now. So the function that we're going to use is called trim, I believe. Yeah, trim. So how a function works is you need to pass the function something, and then the function will do something to it, and then it'll spit out the output. So this function you need to pass in the text, obviously, so that the function knows what to trim. So what you need to do is once you type trim, you do open parentheses, and then move your, you can hit arrow left. That should highlight the cell right next to it. Close the parentheses, and then just hit enter. So you can see the difference between what we've just done versus the original, which is the spaces have now been done properly. So we want that done for every single row. So what you can do is just double click on, so when you hover over the bottom right of the cell, you can see this like cross thing come up. So what you can do is just double click. So that will apply the function to the entire column. Okay. So what we want to do now is just copy this new column that we just made and just replace to the one right next to it. Trim, T-R-I-M. So there's this cross that comes up when you hover over the cell. Just double click that. It'll track the bottom of that table. So like your very last value in this column, it'll just stop. Excel smart enough to pick up that's the endpoint, and that's going to trim that. Everyone following? Cool. So what we're going to do now is just copy what we've done. So this new column and replace it with replace the old one. So Control Shift down, Control C, and then go back to the start of column F. Just right click. That's this option where you can paste values. So you just hit on paste values. And the reason why we do this is because right now column G is using a function. If we want to do further cleaning or further analysis, like Excel is gonna return some error because it's recognizing it as a function. But instead, what we want is the actual values. So what we need to do is just copy the values and replace that to the original column. So now that we've replaced it, we can delete the column. Right click and just delete. Okay, let's move on. Product quantity. From first glance, there's nothing wrong with it. Total sales, we can change this to a dollar amount. So it's right now sitting as a just normal like number. So all we can do is just highlight again, Control Shift down, and then just add dollar symbol next to it. Make sense? All right, moving on to live stage, column I. Anything wrong with column I? What can we do to column I? Yeah. So we want to only capitalize the first letter of each word. So again, we're going to use another function. This time the function is called proper. P-R-O-P-E-R. So the same way, type proper, open parentheses. The proper needs an input, an argument, which is the text that you want to convert into proper. So once you pass that cell in, close bracket, enter. So that cell is done, but we want to apply that function across all the rows. So again, hover over the cell, bottom right, and just double click. So now all the first letters of each word has been capitalized and everything else is lowercase. Again, copy and then replace the original column. So right click, paste values, and then delete this column. I'll pause there. Any questions? All good? Cool. We're going to move on to duplicates now. Does everyone know what a duplicate is? Any takers? Duplicates? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So duplicate is basically just a copy of the data. So say if I have like A, B, C, a duplicate would be exactly the same. So we want to remove a duplicate because it's the exact same record and we don't want the same record to show up twice because it's the same thing, right? So a quick way we can remove duplicates is go to data. And then there's this icon here that says remove duplicates. Just hit on that. Oops. Excel will pick up like the table that you want to work with. And there's an option here to select whether or not your table has a header. For us, we do. So a header is the loyalty, like the first row, loyalty card, number, date, store number. So that's just to tell Excel to ignore that first row because that's a header. And then what you can do is you can select which columns you want to specify as like a duplicate. So here we want to define if a row is the same across all the columns, that's what we consider as a duplicate. And then we want to remove it. So what you can do is just hit OK. And you will see that Excel found one duplicate and it's been removed. All good? All right. Cool. So now we're going to do something more fun. Often when you're analyzing data, there's actually a lot that you can extract out of even like a single column. So like the one that quickly should jump out at you is like this, the column F. So we can see that the product name has the name of the chips, the flavor, and then the pack size. But everything is currently jumbled up in one cell, in one column. So what we can do is you can take specific words out of that cell. So for example, if I want to take just the pack size, so for example, 175 grams, 150 grams, 210 grams, I want to take that out and put it into a new column. That's actually a way for us to do that. And we're going to do it now. So we're going to insert a new column as usual. So this method is called a flash fill. If this doesn't make sense, feel free to go back and Google what a flash fill is. But essentially what you can do is you can type the pack size. So for example, for row number 2, the first product, 175G. Enter. So you want to go to the next row. So next row will be 150G. So as you're typing that, Excel will know what you are trying to do. So it's giving you an option to fill the entire column. And that is exactly what we want, right? So we want to take the pack size from the end of the product name, and we want to fill the entire column. So once that option comes up, you just hit enter, and Excel will fill the entire column. Does everyone follow? Which part? Sure. So what happens? So you need to first go to the first cell, just type 175G. Go to the next one, and as you type 150G, the option should come up like this, where Excel's trying to predict what you're trying to do, and all you need to do is just hit enter, and Excel will fill that column up. Sure. So like another way you can do it is the keyboard shortcut for flash fill is Control E. So Control E does the same thing for you. All good? All right. Any issues that we can immediately spot from what we just did? Column G. Anything wrong with it? Or is it perfect? I'll scroll so you guys can take a look. Anything wrong with that column G? Yeah, exactly. So there's one particular brand that's not done properly, but everything else we can kind of visually see as we scroll down. Most of them is done properly. So all we can do now is just quickly put a filter on the table. So Control A, select the whole table. Under data, there's an icon at the top which says filter. So hit on that. So what will happen now is at the very beginning, at the very start of the table, you can see the arrows pointing down on each column. So what this filter function does is pretty straightforward. So like if I select number 1, that will filter all the rows down to only 1. So if you want to clear that filter, just hit this, clear. That will return the original table. So all we can do is we can have a look at column G and see if there's any pack size that's not done properly. So if we just do a quick scroll on this filter function, we can see that in fact, everything's done properly except for this one, right? 135 sea salt. So all we can do is just select that one to filter the table down to just those rows. And then we can address that specifically. So what we can do is just type 135G and just hit enter. So that should replace everything else. Does that make sense? So now if we move back to the filter, we can see that everything's done properly. We've successfully extracted all the pack sizes, right? Cool. So we can turn off the filter now because we've done what we needed to do. Actually, there's one more thing. What if we want to only take out the number? Right now, it's got the G attached to it. What if we only want the number? Insert a new column. There's a function in Excel called left, which is what we're going to use here. I'm going to quickly demonstrate what left returns, and then you can tell me what left is actually trying to do. So here I've typed in left. I've selected the column next to it, and I've comma 2. Left returns 17. And if I drag this down, it applies to other rows. 15, 21, 17, 16. So what is left trying to do? What does the left function does? What does the left function do? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So here I've specified that I want you to count from the left. I want you to take the first two characters that come into that text, and I want you to split it up, right? So this one's 175G. So the first two characters 17, 150G, the first two are 15, 210G, the first two are 21, and so on and so forth. So that's the function that we want to use. Anyone has any ideas how we can implement that to get just the numbers and not we want to leave out the G, or take only the numbers. Left and 3. Does everyone agree? Left and 3? No, why not? Yeah. So that's what we're going to do. So here, we need to use another function. This time is called len. So len basically returns the number of characters in each text. So what we can do is we can set the G only happens at the end, right? So what we can do is just take the left, and then as for the length, I want you to take the whole number of characters minus 1, which means I want you to leave out the very last character. So that's what we're going to do now. So equals left, open parentheses, pass in the text, comma, len, open parentheses, the cell, close parentheses, minus 1, close parentheses. Does that make sense? Does the formula make sense to everyone? So once you hit enter, you should get 175. And then as usual, just double click on the cross, and that should apply the function all the way down. So now we're going to copy and just replace the values that we've got with in column G. Right click, paste values. You'll get this error that says that this is like a text. So just click on the exclamation mark and just convert it into numbers, and that should be fine. I'll pause there. Any questions? Everyone following? Yeah, because we don't want to take the function. Because when we do like analysis, like if you want to apply that function later on, Excel sometimes gives like the error. So we just want to only take the values and then just replace that with.
And then usually you just delete the original.
I usually just replace it. There's no point keeping it because we've got the values, which is what we want, like at the end of the day. Yeah, so just paste. Just replace the. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And then we're just going to name the column text size, yeah? Everyone good? Happy? Happy to proceed? I'll take that as a yes. All right. Another thing we can do. So now that we've taken out the pack size, what we can do as well is take out the name of the product. So we can see like the first one, for example, Natural Chip Company, Red Rock Deli, Grain Waste. These are all brands of chips, right? So what if we want to take out the brands? So what we can do is we can take left again, using almost the same logic as what we did with the taking the len. What we can do now is there's a function called find I'm gonna run this function again, and you can tell me what it does. Eight, 4, 6, 8, and 3. Any takers? Yeah, so it's finding the first space character. So all we want to do is just take the first word. So as what we've done previously, just left, pass in the text, find, use double. I don't think you can use single, just use double, double apostrophe, open and close, comma again, pass the cell, close it, and then close it. So if you've done it right, the first word you should get is natural. Maybe -1 is more accurate. I'll keep the formula on the screen just so you guys can type it out, and then I'm gonna move on. Because the space is on the 8th character, so we want to -1 because we want to stop at here. And then just apply the function to the entire column. And then as usual, just copy and then just replace the right click, paste values, and then just delete this column. Cool. We're gonna do a group activity. Maybe split amongst yourself groups of let's call it 3, maybe 4. So what we're gonna do now is, now that this table is relatively clean, so like we've done almost what we need to do. So the group activity is, so amongst yourselves, find 3 mistakes in the data table that I haven't thought out yet. Okay, we're gonna spend 5, maybe 10 minutes. Yeah, group yourself into 3. I'll walk around if you guys need like help and stuff. Yeah, find 3 mistakes that are still present in the data, and then we can discuss this after 10 minutes. Sound good?
Can you guys gather around somewhere?
Now, so my Excel crashed.
Yeah.
What was the so I thought like I was getting the public stuff, but then I couldn't get one part of it. It was the getting the 175. What was that actual function?
Yeah, so just I think create a new column right next to it.
Yeah.
And then you just need to start typing like 175 grand, 175G.
Yeah.
And then just go to the next row.
Yeah.
15, 150. And maybe they obviously have like 50, but that's okay.
I think it was like fast. I can't remember the name of it, but I was able to get it before there was a function.
I think it's under dot.
Flash field, that's the one. I think I know it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
That's all I needed.
Okay.
I didn't know what I was searching fast.
Yeah. Flash field.
Yeah, but I went to next door.
Asking for too much. When did you get it? When did you get it?
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I was going to go first. Imagine having, do you feel that was one? Yeah,
That's not true.
I think it's yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm gonna be honest.
It sounds fun. It's like
Have you never said anything? It's a big part.
Bro, you look like a finance guy. Yeah.
We should ask them.
Yeah, well, no, I'm deciding to do so. It's not, I kind of get that out. It's one thing, to be fair, though, like the reason I'm holding it's cool. And like the punch string, like it's like I watched it
But I'm based on. Yeah, sure. So like someone else, I could just say I'm actually. Yeah. Like if I apply to an organization,
it is tough, right? But I feel like I'm gonna just like, yeah, I don't know, like, but no, I think I genuinely do not I swear. This one, and that one. Oh, so you like the way yeah, that's me on Tableau. Like, I don't know. I see you on Tableau. I just started on it. It's like, good presentation. Got a chocolate egg. Go on. Huh? Tap. She left. Oh, no, she's not left. She's on. Not that bad.
All right, we're happy to resume. Everyone's on the checks. Everyone's got the answers. All right. As I was walking around the different tables, I think I forgot to first introduce what the data set actually is. Does anyone have any idea? There's in a brief 2 or 3 sentences what is this piece of data? What does each row represent? What are the rows? What are the columns? Does anyone know? Want to give a quick summary? No takers, but that's okay. So hey? Yeah. So in summary, this data set is basically this data set is basically if you imagine a retail store, right? A retail store has different products that they sell. So this specifically is specifically is referring to the chips. You have different kinds of chips, and each row represents a transaction made by a particular customer buying a particular type of chip, right? So if you imagine customer A walks in the store one day and he bought Red Rock Deli, for example, 2 packs for $8.50. So that will show up as one row. Customer A comes back the next day and buys a different brand, that will show up as a different row, and so on and so forth. So that's what the table is trying to represent. I should have explained at the very beginning, because that's one of the first steps when you get a new piece of data from the client. Just make sure you examine, you know what's going on, you know what each row represents, you know what the fields are. That's one of the first things that you should do. So in summary, that's what the data is. Yes, Michael. Victor wants to know how I got the product name. I'll just type, it's okay. All right, we'll move on to the three mistakes in the data. So I think some of you guys found some. Let's go through them now. So the first one is, so if we put a filter on the table like we've done previously, in column F under product name, you should see that some of the product names are actually mislabeled. Well, not mislabeled, maybe they've call it differently. So for example, Woolworths and WW at the end. So those are actually the same thing, right? So if we want to clean them up and if we want to do further analysis, we should label them so that they're consistent. So WW is one example. Another one is Sunbites, SNBTS, RRD and Red. Those two should be Red Rock Deli. Infusions, Brainwaves. So these are all things that we need to just rename to keep things consistent, right? So what we're going to do now is something called Find and Select. So that's this table. That's this icon in the Home tab. On the far right, Find and Select. Just hit on that one, and then just hit Replace. So it's going to have 2 cells. So the first one is what you're trying to look for. Excel's going to ask you what you're trying to look for. So for example, if I want to replace WW with Woolworths, so I'll tell Excel to find WW. And what I want you to do once you find WW is rename it to Woolworths, and then just hit replace all. Did everyone get that? So Excel's managed to find 10,000 records.
Is there any way to make sure it's
that's what I'm going to get to like next. I don't think there is. Yeah. So now that we've done that, if we go back to the filter option, if we scroll down, the WW is gone. So everything's been renamed to Woolworths. So let's do another one. Sunbites, SMBTS. Find and select, replace. Look for SMBTS. Replace it with Sunbites. Replace all. Cool. So if we go back, the SMBTS is gone, right? So just now, Michael brought up a good question. So when you do find and replace, it's actually quite risky because sometimes the word that you're looking for might be present in other values. So what's going to happen is, so say for example, let's take what's a good example? Smith, for example. So like let's say for example, Smith and Smiths, once without an S, once with an S. Say if I want to replace the one without an S with by adding an S. So find and select, replace Smith with Smiths with an S. Replace all. What do you think is going to happen now? Yeah. So you end up with records with some bytes with 2S, yeah? Good question. No, there's unfortunately like Excel, it's not really like there's not a straightforward way of doing it. Is it done? Yeah, so what you can see now is like there's a record here that's Smith with double S. So we don't want that, right? So let's just undo what we've done. Before I review what the answer is, does anyone have any like ideas on how to avoid it? You can try. I don't think it'll work. Yeah. I haven't personally tried that, but you should give it a shot. Does anyone have any ideas on how to address this? Change it to something else? Could be doable. I think that's doable. But yeah, I think that just goes to show like how like when Excel, when it comes to this sort of stuff, they don't have like an inherent function to help you like solve, like address this sort of things. So what I was getting at is what you can do is just select the specific value. So for example, if I want to select Smith, just do it like manually like this. And then you just copy everything down. So that's another way of doing it. Make sense? What I've just done is filter down to the rows that have like Sunbites. Sorry, not Sunbites, Smith, and then just add an S, and then just copy the whole entire thing down. Make sense? Cool. So that's mistake number one. Another mistake that you might or might not have found is actually in pack size. Sorry, not pack size, product quantity. So what's wrong with product quantity? So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 200. Let's have a look at 200. So it's coming from the same person, right? The loyalty card number is the same. And on 2 separate dates, this person has purchased 200 packs. When was the last time you bought 200 packs of chips? Never? All right, so this is the sort of things that you have to check for. So potentially a hypothesis is this person has, has gone to this like a store and has like bulk buy for like, I don't know, for whatever reason. And that's the result of like that 200. So these are sort of things you need to point out. And if you spot this sort of mistakes in the data, you should always like go back to the client, just to like, clarify things, ask them questions. Is it okay to just remove them? Or do you want me to keep in the data? Usually they'll say to remove because this is what we call an outlier, which is something deviates very largely from the whole data set. So for the purpose of this exercise, we're just going to remove them. So just highlight the 2 rows. Right click. And then just delete the row. Cool. All right, so that's mistake number 2. Last one. Did anyone check the date column? Just by show of hands. I'll take that as a no. So the final mistake number 3 is there's actually a missing date in the data set. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new tab. So this is a plus icon at the bottom where my mouse is hovering now. Just create a new tab. And in cell A1, we're going to use a function called unique, U-N-I-Q-U-E. So unique is going to return all the unique values in the column, right? So right now our data set has dates. So like in a given day, there's a lot of like customers that walk in. So there's like dates that repeat across each row. So what we want is to only extract the unique dates out of the date column. So go back to your original data set and just pass in the first. I think you might need to highlight the whole date column. So just highlight the whole date column. Close parentheses, and then just hit enter. And again, because this is currently a general, we want to turn it into a short date. Did anyone get that? All good? Cool. We're just going to copy this. And then just paste the values because we only want the values. Cool. All right, so right now the dates are not sorted, right? So let's sort them first. So there's this sort function at the top, sort and filter. Sort A to Z. Wait, you might have to go to that first date. Sort from oldest to newest. So that's going to sort the date from the very beginning until the very end. So just hit that. So we can see that the first date is from the 1st of July. So this is probably like the financial year, right? So it's 1st of July. The last date is the 30th of June. So 1 year of data. Okay. So Excel doesn't have a function for you to immediately find what the missing date is. So we're going to come up with like a hacky way of finding the missing date. So in a new column, in column B, just name the column is tomorrow, question mark. What we're going to do now is check. So go through each row and see if it's the day after the previous row. Does that make sense? So for that, we're going to use an if function. Has anyone done like programming here knows what like an if function does? Yes. You don't have the unique function. That's a good question. I don't know. You might need to like Google that. Like yeah. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Sorry. All right, so we're going to use an if function. So what an if function is you need to specify a condition. If that condition is specified, the function will do something. If not, it'll do something else. You know that yeah. All right, we're gonna move on. So like we're gonna use the if function. If, open parentheses, if this date minus the previous date equals to 1, I want you to call it yes. If it's not, I want you to call it no. Does everyone understand what I'm trying to do here? Yeah, make sense? So once you apply that function, just double click. That should get everything down. Again, apply a filter. So we're going to find the row that says no, yeah? So it's on the 26th of December 2018. So we can scroll down to find where that record is. So what date is missing there? 25th of December, what's that? Christmas? Does it make sense that we don't have any sales recorded for that day? Make sense or no? Yeah, because it's Christmas, the store probably not open, right? So that's something you can bring back to a client, just double confirm, you know. But at least we've done the checks that we need to do. Okay, cool. So I think that's bring us to the end of in terms of like data cleaning. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break now for 5 minutes, and then when we come back, we're going to move on to data visualization with Power BI. Sound good? All right, be back in. Let's call it 7:10 sharp, and then we're gonna restart. The clean.
What are you recording?
Zoom. I think it's still going. Yeah.
what's your plan for half an hour? Run through some basic.
Yeah.
Like,
For beginners.
you should only
No mouse.
no
All keyboard.
Control C, Control arrow key.
Oh, wow.
Just, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
So like when you actually work, how often do you use Excel to clean data as opposed to Python using pandas library or something like that?
Not often, like Excel, I think it's mostly, like this sort of stuff we probably do, like, Excel. Excel mostly is just like, ultimately, that's it. Yeah, Excel mostly is, yes, basically like portraying, look at stuff, give it charts, like like charts before that or something. Most of the time, like it's like we use just because like all the like stuff that I mentioned, like Excel, yeah, that's like yeah.
Wait, so out of curiosity, like what like for that particular use case, like when would you use Python? When would you use R? Because I know it's the same.
It's the same. It depends on which person.
It so depends on who you work with.
Yeah.
So if everyone's working on like Python, a lot of things changes. You might be doing like so we write like functions and like and then you might just run for like pipelines. Yeah, most of the time you don't need to do something like else. Might be something else that you need to like check something. You just do like once like get started, it's like
Just for like recursory investigation. It's like when you actually do visualization.
Yeah, it sounds like good. I think it's good because sometimes it's like, I don't know, sometimes like I feel like that way it's like something you can't do. Yeah, that's
and like
Yeah. So what kind of clients do you work with? It's like I was kind of curious because I know Woolworths has like a majority stake in it. Like I know fund bankers, like beyond that, like you guys, I know it's like data analysis.
so like we all part of the words that's now part of so like like words and then what's the one come back partnership and stuff with also like these just felt like help government. That's government works from government, reduces their government, and each of the government are like Congress and like different like government, so if you know much about like our products, like sales,
I know that you guys have like an AI platform which help on your website.
also like the IC stuff like that. Yeah, so like that's a separate team that handles like development, testing, with some more like almost like software engineering kind of more software engineering. But there's also like
So like you mentioned a bunch of like clients, like what like describe like what was your last engagement? What did you maybe like
I can't get into too much detail.
Yeah.
I'm like currently government business in product. Yeah. So my last engagement was like government. Because like COVID's been like pretty hard, like the past 2 years. Yeah, it's like some like reporting stuff. But yeah, so like we also have like the data set, clean it, visualize it, get like supplementary reports. Yeah, try like COVID.
Yeah, so like secretaries. Yeah, so like covering the lot, like they have to like secretaries like ahead of team is formed up of like the secretary responsible. You got 40 rounds. So what they do is during their private understand what the number is.
Fabulous, thanks everyone. For sure. Thank you. And then we'll start the Power BI. Can you guys gather around someone who has Power BI installed if you don't have it?
For people that don't have Power BI, just gather around someone who does. Yeah, so for those who have Power BI, can you just launch the app? Just open it. You should get something that looks like this. Give you guys a couple of seconds to do that. All right, so you should have like a separate data set that's already been like cleaned. So this is the final, assuming you've done like everything correctly from like the previous exercise. You should have like this data set ready. So what we're going to do now is we're going to import this data set into Power BI. So what is Power BI? So Power BI is basically like a dashboarding reporting tool where you can create like graphs and like visuals to summarize the data, like create like bar charts, time series, and those sort of things. It's a simple way for you to, it's interactive as well. So like if you want to like let someone use it, they can use it. Cool. So first things first, we need to get the data in, right? So just hit get data. No, that's fine. Excel workbook. It's going to ask you which data you want. I'm not too sure if one renamed the table, but if not, it should be final data. Just open that. So you should have this thing pop up. Does everyone have it? Yes? No? Yes? Cool. All right, so what we want is the customer and the transaction table. So this one. So once you click on the table, Power BI will sort of show you a preview of what the table looks like. So this is the customer table. And we also want the transaction table, which is what we used in the previous session. Once you selected those two tables, just load it in. All right, cool. So before we get started, now that the data is in, just a brief, I guess, introduction of like the UI. Some of you guys, this might be the first time you guys are using Power BI. So a quick introduction is there's like three separate tabs here on the left. So the first one is called report. This is what we're gonna use it's like almost like a canvas. This is what we're gonna build our dashboard on. The next one's called table. So this gives you like a table view of all the data you've got in. So we've got two tables in now. One's called customer and one's called transaction. Yeah, so transaction is the one that we used just now. And this customer table is basically like a list of all the unique customers that you have, that the client has. And last but not least, we have model. So model is basically the sort of relationship that you have with the different tables. So here, if I hover over this line here, it says that I have a one-to-many relationship between the customer table and the transaction table. And the reason for that is because, and if you hover over it as well, it will tell you exactly which field that's connecting the two tables together. And in this case, it's the loyalty card number. So Power BI is smart enough to see that this column is actually corresponds to this. The column in customer table actually corresponds to the same column in transaction. And it's a one-to-many relationship because the customer table, this is a unique customer data. So each row is unique across loyalty card number. Whereas transaction, we can have repeated loyalty card number across the rows. Does that make sense? Cool. So those are the three main tabs. If you go back to report, we can see here on the right, under the visualization tab, we have like different options here that you can select. So for example, we have like pie chart, we have scatter plot, we have cards, and so on and so forth. So these are the options that you can choose. Say you want to create a table, then you just select the table option and so on and so forth. If like a particular visualization is not here, you can actually install it, but we're not going to go through that. But in case you want to know how it works, there's this triple dot icon here. You can get more visuals. You can import it from online, from the internet, in case like the particular visual that you're looking for is not on here. But for the purpose for today, we're just going to use what's already inbuilt in Power BI. But yeah, just in case you want to, in case the visuals that you're looking for is not on there. And to create a visual, actually, before we do that, it's always a good habit to just like examine that you've imported the data properly. So just like go through each column and make sure that everything makes sense. So for example, like this date, you can actually change it into a short date, which is what the original was. So just click on that column and just change the format. Total sales as well. We want to make this a dollar, just add a dollar symbol. And then for decimal places, we want 2 decimal places. So just hit 2. That should apply to the whole column. And if you have a look at the filter, so what the arrow does is actually the filter function that we have in Excel that we saw from early on. So we can see that we actually have like a few blanks here. So Power BI must have done like something wrong during the import. So let's just fix that. So what you can do is just right click on transaction. So on the right hand side in the fields tab, just right click, edit query. So it's going to bring something like this up. So what we want is just remove the blanks. There's this option here called remove empty. Just hit on that. And that should remove all the empty rows. So always check before, like when you import a data set, just make sure that it corresponds to all the fields are present, all the rows are captured properly. You don't have any missing rows. The data type is correct. These are the checks that you need to do beforehand before you even jump into creating visuals. So once you've filtered all that, just hit close and apply. So this icon here on the top left, just hit that icon, and that should apply that change to the table. Everyone following so far? Cool. Remove the business, you want to help? Yeah, just help her with the remote. Thank you. If everyone's happy with that, we're gonna move on to actually creating a visual. Our first visual with Power BI. So just go back to the report. So right now it's blank. Let's do the most simple one, which is called a card. So there's this icon here called card with 1, 2, 3 on it. Let's hit on that one. So something like this will show up. You can drag this around. This is almost like a, so Power BI, like it's very like drag and droppy. It's almost like PowerPoint. Once you create something, you can like kind of drag it around. You can resize it. You can edit it, and so on. So this is what we call a card. So how a card works is, actually before we get into that, so this when you create a visual, this icon will pop up. So these are basically like what sort of things you can edit, like to customize the card. We're gonna get to that later, but first we need to fill. Right, so right now the card is empty because we haven't like put anything into it, right? So in this fields area, let's put the under transaction table, let's put the total sales. Yeah, so what you can do is just basically drag total sales into the fields area, and that should populate the whole. That should populate the card. Yeah, so let's repeat that again. So if I create a new card, the card is empty. Let's say, for example, now I want, let's do, what's a good one to do? Let's do store number, for example. Yeah, so drag the field that you want into the field section. Just drop that in, or you can just click on the field, and that should populate the visual as well. And so right now it's showing me the sum. So like this, like 36 million. If I don't want that, if I only want the unique, so I want to know how many unique stores are there in my retail chain. So what you can do is you can hit on the arrow down. So here in the field section. So right now is summing. I want to count this thing. So I want you to show me all the how many unique stores do I have in my retail chain that are selling chips. So I have 272 unique stores. Yeah. So you can play around with like the customization. So for example, yeah, you can like play around with it. For example, like if I turn background off, does this do anything? No. So data label, you can change like the color. So right now it's like set to black. You can change it to like blue, for example. So this is where you do your customization, like edit stuff. What if I want to rename this count of store number to just store numbers? So you can double click on this one and rename it to, I don't know, number of stores, maybe number of stores. And that's going to update the card. Does that make sense? Straightforward. All right, so now that we've done cards, let's move on to something else. Let's do a pie chart. Personally, not a big fan of pie chart, but let's just do it for now. Let's say I want a breakdown of all my customers. I want a overview of what my customers, like what are my demographic breakdowns of my customer. So under the values field, just chuck in live stage. Actually, no, premium customer. Sorry. You need to select on that particular visual before you do anything. That's why it didn't work just now. So drag in premium customer into legend. Drag in premium customer again in the values. Yeah, so basically this chart shows me I have 26% of all my customers are premium, 40% are mainstream, and the remaining 34% are budget. Yeah. So you can like change the colors. For example, if you don't like this blue, you can change something else. These are all under this icon here. If you want to change the legend to only show the percentage, you can do that as well. How do I do that? Detail label. So if I only want the percentage of total, so that will remove the count and show me only the percentages. Make sense? Cool. So another thing you can do is, so if we double click back into the total sales visual that we created early on, you notice there's this filter tab here. What filter does is it'll apply a filter onto that particular visual. So say, for example, instead of total sales, I want to only look at a certain premium customer. So I can drag the premium customer into the fields tab. And Power BI will ask me which one I want to filter down to. Say, for example, if I only want total sales that come from premium customers, I can select this. And I can change this one to Does that make sense? Cool. So what we're going to do now is another group activity. Let's spend maybe 10, 15 minutes. This is probably ambitious, but try to get as much done as possible. So I've actually, prior to this workshop, I've created a dashboard. So our goal for the next 15 minutes is to try to recreate what I've done on the screen. I'll walk around. Vincent will be around as well if you guys need a hand. Yeah, let's try for 15 minutes. Just create as much as you can. And then we'll reconvene after 15 minutes to discuss. Page view, hit the page. Oh, they can't see.
No, it's a bit small, man. Oh, the stuff at the bottom as well.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
you
it's
just
okay.
get them
Let's
to
just
make
let's just make this one.
Hey, what visual is this?
It's 100% stack.
Oh, true. Damn, I don't even know how to make.
Bestseller, so how we define bestseller is based on product quantity. So like across in that particular year, the brand that has the most product quantity sold, that's the bestseller. If you can't get a particular visual, just move on. The next one, just in just a time. If it's like a small thing you need help with, yeah, I'm walking around business here as well.
That's not I'll cover that later. Just which one are you trying to do? The bottom, yeah. So that one's 100% stack. Yes, just change that to yep. And then try different fields for the student. Yes, good job. If you can't get the best, I'll just move on to something else. Yes. I guess about the stack. Yeah. Oh no, yeah, I think you use that like maybe none of them respond. Pretty much.
I don't know where he is. Meetings at every like 3 weeks.
Yeah, maybe it's just.
All right, 2 more minutes and then we'll
Let me see that. No, it works. What the frick? Bro. Right. I was filtering on the wrong thing.
I actually made a mistake, like that 100% that I took.
I haven't looked at what it is. Oh yeah, that should be from customer table.
Yeah. So this one should be like sales by customer breakdown or something like that.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be customer demo.
How do you alright? Is there a way to like how is table being
Don't you just edit it?
Yeah. I mean, you can like.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, so like if you turn off the interactions with everything,
Yeah.
but you can still click on rows in there. Is
Oh,
that
sure. I don't know. I don't think I've used that. I don't know you can sort. Like, you know,
Oh,
it's like,
yeah. That's so bad. Probably I know. So I don't even know how to make this. Wait, what visual is this? Is this a bar chart?
just a normal bar chart.
Sheesh, I didn't know you could make a top 5. What's in it? Product name, value, product quantity.
All right, we'll resume. So before I start, you guys will get a copy of this Power BI file. And yeah, once you get it, you can just click on each visual and see what like fields I've like put in, what measures, what like customization I've done. So let's just quickly walk through it. So I think most of you guys got total sales, number of customer, number of stores. So I don't think anyone got bestseller. Am I wrong? All right. So the reason why, how you calculate bestseller is actually via something called like a measure. We probably don't have time today. How essentially, long story short, how a measure is different from a normal like field that we've been using to drag and drop. It's like you have to write code to calculate it. And in terms of icon, you can see like there's a calculator icon next to it. I probably don't have time to walk through it. So let's just have a look at so this is the code that I've written. Basically what this is doing is show me the first product. I want you to filter by, sorry, show me the first product. So number 1 and then product name, calculate the sum and then rank them by product quantity. And then just take the top end, which is like the top whatever. And we want the first one. So this is a measure. And once you've created a measure, just drag it into the visual. And how you create a measure is you right click on a table and then click new measure. So it's gonna ask you like what you want to name the measure. So for example, like measure equals, let's say for example, if I just want to write like 1. So now I have a new measure called measure and the value is 1. So if I drag this into that card, it's going to show 1. Yeah. So let's just delete this. Cool. I think most of you guys got both the pie chart and the 100% stack. I realized I made a mistake calling this customer demographics. It should be sales by customer breakdown. So we want to look at how our sales perform across each customer segment. So this should actually be sales by customer breakdown. All right, so moving down, we have a table on the left and a top 5 best and worst selling product. In terms of the table, if I click into it, these are basically just the fields that I've taken from the transaction table. So the first column, loyalty card number, premium customer, live station, total sales. Those are the columns there. And how do we get top 50 is under filter. So if you expand the filter tab, I've actually filtered the loyalty card number by taking the top n, and I want you to take the top 50. And if you apply that filter, that should give you only 50 rows. Does that make sense? And sorry, and when you're taking the top 50, I want you to summarize by total sales. So look at total sales, rank them from biggest, largest to smallest, and then just take the biggest 50. Does that make sense? Cool. And in terms of this one that's next to it, top 5 best and worst selling product. This one's a bit trickier because Power BI only allows you to look at the filter like one way. So you can either take the top 5 or the bottom 5. So here I've actually come up with like a hacky kind of way. So here I've made like an or statement. So if I remove this, this is actually what you got when you drag all the fields in. So you can, you kind of just like count like the top 5 and then just put less than, let's just do it. So this one is 8600, this is 87. So I want everything that's less than 8700 or greater than 30,000. If you apply the filter, you should get this. Does that make sense? Cool. We probably don't have time to go through like the bottom ones. So this actually is a new visual called a slicer. So what a slicer is basically like an interactive visual that the user can use. So for example, right now the slicer is selecting all. So this shows me all the product names. So if the user only wants to look at burger rings, for example, that's gonna change the 2 visuals at the bottom. If I want to look at burger rings plus Hobbs, you can do that as well. So that's gonna change the 2 visuals at the bottom. And how we create a visual is similar to how we've done all the visuals so far. There's a visual called slicer. Just hit on that. So it behaves the same way as all your visuals, right? You can drag in like what column you want into the field. So what we want is we want to allow the user to select different products. So for us, we want to drag in product name. And then you can make this into a drop down. So like an arrow, there's an arrow that allows you to change it into a drop down. Let me make it bigger. So now you have a slicer. Yeah. But if I select one of the items in the slicer, my whole dashboard has kind of changed. The reason for that is because every time you create a visual, Power BI actually has like an interaction that is established with every visual that you have on that page. So what I've done here is actually, when I select Cheetos, it's actually filtered all my visuals down to only Cheetos, which is not what we want, right? We only want that slicer to interact with, for example, these 2 graphs. Does that make sense? So what we need to do now is just double click on the slicer, go to, you can't see, go to format. There's an option here called edit interactions. And this is a very painstakingly process. I don't know why Microsoft has designed it this way, but basically what you need to do is you just need to turn it off one by one. Yeah. So once you turn off these 2, this slicer won't interact with those visuals anymore. Okay. So for us, so if I go back to my original slicer, let's just remove this for now. Remove. So if I go back to my original slicer, and if I look at the interactions, So all the other ones have already been turned off. So this one's turned off, the table's turned off. It's only interacting with 2 at the bottom, which is what we want the slicer to do. Does that make sense? I'll pause there. Make sense? Cool. All right. The final thing. When you're building dashboards, it's obviously like this is considered very simple, a dashboard. Sometimes when you have like a lot of visuals on the page, it might get confusing. So what you can do is you go under view. You can actually open up the selection panel. So these are basically all the visuals that you currently have on your page. So for example, I don't know why this button is here. Let's just drag this out. Yeah, so you have like, for example, like so when you click on certain thing in that selection pane, it will show you exactly which visual it is. Yeah. So the reason why I brought this up is because so normally when you create a visual, it doesn't come grouped properly like this. So when you create a visual, you'll usually show up like this in the selection pane. So what you need to do when you're creating a dashboard is when you're working as a team, or like if you need to hand this product over to like the client, it's always best practice to kind of group the visuals so that people know like which section is which. So for example, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 visuals are kind of in one section called summary metrics. So what we can do is just left click, and then shift click again. So that'll highlight all the visuals. So you can see that all the visuals have borders around them. So what you can do is just right click, group, and then you can call this something summary metrics. Okay. And another benefit of doing so is you can also, once you've grouped everything together, you can move things around quicker as well. So if I want to move this one to like the right, for example, rather than sitting at 80, if I want to change this to 200, the whole thing will move together rather than just moving a visual one by one. It's not efficient. Another thing you can do is you can hide a group. So you can hide specific like visuals by hitting on the eye icon. You can also hide the whole section altogether. So that's the benefits of like group. So benefit number one is I think it's best practice when you're working as a group is to keep your dashboard clean or your visuals clean. And the second benefit is just like, yeah, like you can like move stuff around more quickly. You know like which visual belongs to which area and so on and so forth. Cool. All right, so that brings us to the end. Like I said, you guys will get a copy of the Power BI file. I think in summary, what we've kind of went through today. So first of all, we start off with Excel, right? When you get any particular data set, always, I think first thing you need to do is you need to obviously like examine the rows, examine the columns, understand what the data set actually is. Like that practice we went through just now. Do I know what each row represents? Okay, each row is a customer. That customer has done a transaction, has bought this chips of this size of this quantity. That's the row. And then what you can do next is just go through each field again. Just like spot for like mistakes, whether it's like missing date or like names that are not consistent. You can like extract like pack size, what we've done previously, and just do like basic analysis like before you do any sort of thing. And if you like, if the project kind of leads towards like a visualization, like if you want to build like a tool, that's when Power BI comes in, which is what we went through in the second half. Yeah. So yeah, so that brings us kind of towards the end. You will get like all the materials available to you. Me and Vincent will probably like stay around for a bit. Like if you have any questions related to what we just went through about Quantium, about like data science in general, about like consulting client work, feel free to like stick around. We'll be around like to answer like questions. Otherwise, yeah, enjoy your Easter break. Thank you guys for coming. Yeah, cool.
Could you give a massive round of applause? Just a quick question. I think we can answer for everyone.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to look at like further resources,
yeah,
like, what is recommended or just anything on Google?
I think everything on Google should be like okay. I think with like data stuff, I think for most similar to most things, it comes with like practice. Whether it's like actually doing the cleaning, doing the analysis, or if it's just like having the sense of what you need to check for, those things that come with practice. Like the more projects you do, the more data sets you look at, Google's your best friend, just go like, search things up. That should, that should probably do it. Yeah.
So,
Beauty. Cool.
are you coming down to the alumni event?
Yeah, I'll be at the alumni event as well next Thursday, I believe. Yeah, so if you guys are there, come say hi.
Hopefully we'll see some more familiar faces.
Yeah.